Do you think if you wouldn't have been laid up, you would have done it regardless, or did that just accelerate it?
I think it accelerated it. I don't think that I don't. It's tough to say now. I don't think there's a world where we wouldn't have gone after it. I think it was, like you said, an accelerator more than anything else because it was something that we talked about for years, and we just kept seeing people try and fail, try and fail, try and fail, and finally, just like there's got to be a better way of doing this, and we kind of got to the point where now we feel like if we don't get it done, which we're going to get it done, nobody will, because we know how much time and effort goes into it and kind of where we're at. So I would say it definitely accelerated it.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with my friend Brett Portera. How are you doing today, Brett?
I'm doing well, Jeremy. How are you?
Man, I can't complain. It's a pretty good day. It's a Monday, but I'm excited always. The beginning of the week excites me. I'm ready to just get to work,
Yep, I had a long day myself, but the rest of it should only get easier from here, right? Getting closer to Friday.
Exactly. I love to hear it, man. So one of the ways I love to kick off the podcast is talk about the importance of networking. How do we know each other?
So we were introduced by mutual connection, Olivia, who's also a fellow podcast host. She was helping me get my name and my story out there a bit more, and she did some of the legwork on doing some background, introducing me to folks like yourself that have interesting podcasts and platforms that felt kind of aligned with my story. And she introduced us, and yeah.
Couldn't agree more, man. It's one of those chances. Any chance I get to pub Olivia and all the great work she does. She was a guest on the show, and she's just so great at connecting people. I just always appreciate it. I think it's so important when you're networking, and not even networking, just getting to know people. If someone like Olivia, for example, kind of says your name out there, puts your name out there, it's like, all right, I really want to meet this person because Olivia clearly found some interest or connection in your story. So it's one of those exciting things,
Yeah, definitely.
Let's jump into the story. I want to know that comic book issue #1 origin story. Who are you?
My name is Brett Portera. I am the oldest of three boys. I was born and raised on Long Island, New York. I'll be 28 in 3 days. Currently 27. And I'm the founder and CEO of Crest Surf Clubs. So what we're doing is we are building membership-based surf clubs with wave pools. Our first one will be here on Long Island. This is something that I've dreamt and thought about since I was, 12, 13 years old, probably. And yeah.
Brett, what got you into surfing to begin with? You said you've dreamed about it for quite a while now.
Sure. So probably when I was about 8, 10 years old, somewhere around there, my parents got me on the surfboard for my first time. I grew up lucky enough. My parents had a boat and was very connected to the ocean and the beach and the water in general from almost day one. So I was born in March and I was on the boat in my basket when I was 3 months old by the time the summer rolled around. And I just for the longest time remember basically being a fish and being in the water every chance I got. And I fell in love with surfing right away, very early on. My dad surfs, so he's the one that really kind of got me into it. And I think it was really an excuse for him to be able to surf more. He knew what he was doing. He was creating a surfing buddy so that he could kind of pin it on me as I got older, saying, "Oh, Brett wants to go surf," and that's kind of, I think where his mind might have been at. But I'm very thankful that we did start out there. When I was around probably about 13, 14 years old is when we, kind of the groundwork was laid for Crest. And that was the idea of wave pools and surf parks were becoming a thing. And I thought it was really neat. And, as someone who loved surfing and grew up in an entrepreneurial household, it was something that I always thought I wanted to pursue, but didn't quite know how because I was a young kid. And then as time went on and I went away to school and things started to progress, I was able to kind of start to turn that dream into reality.
Brett, I want to go back. You mentioned you grew up in an entrepreneurial household. Can you kind of describe to me what that meant for you?
Yeah. So my dad started his own business probably when he was around my age or so, so late 20s, early 30s, around there. It's now a business that he went from the back of his car to he has about a 10,000 square foot warehouse, completely unrelated industry. He sells janitorial supplies, but kind of grew up, working there during the summers when I was a little kid, probably, 10, 12 years old, going in for an hour or two just to help out and worked my way through that business. Saw the lifestyle that him and my mom lived and kind of how they were always around. Just the fact that he was his own boss. I was able to be at, all of our sporting events, extracurricular activities, and, wasn't answering to somebody else. And I found that very intriguing, especially as a young kid. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of, where I guess I got started. So like I said, I started loading trucks and, pulling runs, as we call it, in orders. Uh, like I said, around 10 years old or so. And as I got older and started to go through school, got to the point where right after COVID, I was actually running the business right before I kind of stepped into Crest full time. So.
Brett, I love that. So, out of curiosity, was that something you and your dad talked about, or was that just something you learned and observed? And I only ask because I grew up in a Midwestern area up in Wisconsin, and my folks were 9 to 5 people. Of course, they had side projects and things they worked on, but that really, the idea of entrepreneurship or that idea really wasn't a subject in my immediate household. My uncle ended up starting a company called Swick, and so he was more of the entrepreneur of the family, but it was one of those things. I was just curious if that was something you guys talked about or just something you watched and learned.
I think a little bit of both. When we first started talking about Crest and, building the wave pool in Long Island, it was very selfishly driven. It was because we wanted to surf more. And like from my perspective, that's what it was. I wanted to surf more. I wanted to be a better surfer. From his perspective, he was looking at it from an economic standpoint as well, and he felt that it could work and it could be successful. And aside, he did want to surf more as well because that's really the root of this whole thing. It is, somewhat of a passion project for us. Um, and we did talk about it, when I was in high school, and it was really just, that's what it was. We were talking about it because I didn't know how to start a business. He knew how to do it, but I was so young that it wasn't really something feasible, and it wasn't front of mind for me either. I was trying to play lacrosse in college, so I was a multi-sport athlete in high school. I was surfing. I had a social life. Like, the last thing on my mind as a 15 or 16-year-old was, okay, how do I start this business? It was, in the back of my mind and always kind of where I thought I wanted to get to. When you're trying to pick a school to go to in high school, you don't really know what you want to be when you grow up. I could arguably say I don't know what I want to be when I grow up either right now. Who knows? It'll change, right? So,
Exactly.
that was something that was always on my radar. And it was, to be honest, was kind of almost a fallback for me at first. Like my freshman and sophomore year of high school, I thought I wanted to be more um, engineering or architecture based because I like building things. I was a kid that played with Legos, and I thought that's where my life was going to go. And then as I went through high school a bit more, I realized I didn't really like physics, and I didn't absolutely love math. So maybe engineering and architecture weren't, and I wasn't a good drawer. So maybe those things weren't the best for me. So business became more kind of front and center. And then, it kind of just continued to evolve. I always knew that I would have the option to come back and take over my father's business or run it with him or something like that. So I kind of had a fail safe, so to say, which is, something that I know, a lot of people don't have. And I'm, very thankful that I did have that opportunity and was able to kind of look at it with that lens. And then when I got to college, I was like, let's go for this, and kind of push my parents into going down the route of, trying to start Crest. And, that was in 2015, and kind of haven't looked back since.
Love that. So, on everyone's journey path, there's a chance you go east, chance you go west, and you take a leap of faith, if you will. Can you give me a time where you did that?
Yeah. So, it was, like I said, we kind of talked about doing Crest for a while. And what kickstarted it was between my freshman and sophomore year of college. I got sick with this thing called reactive arthritis. It's autoimmune disease that kind of comes from some sort of infection, basically. So I was laid up over the summer. I couldn't work at my dad's warehouse and do the things I normally did. I couldn't play lacrosse. I was a mess basically for I would say July 4th till the middle of August is when it was really bad. So at that point, he was like, well, "Why don't you build a website and let's see if anybody would actually be interested in this membership based wave pool?" Because we grew up in the community, we knew that uh, we had a good feel for the community, the surf community, and that there were people willing to be a part of this as a member, but we didn't actually have any data. So we basically said, if we can get 200 people on our mailing list by the end of the year. I think we launched like August 15th. I don't know why I have that remembered, but I'm pretty sure it's August 15th. I launched the website and the Instagram accounts and the Facebook account. We would go ahead and go forward and try to figure out how to do this. And I think within like the first 2 months, we had, already surpassed that number. I think we ended up probably closer to 500 by the end of the year of people who had expressed interest in being members in the club. And that was really when we took the leap of faith and said, okay, let's figure out how to do this. I, again, didn't necessarily have any money to put into the project, but I spent hours and days researching the industry, learning, just trying to be a sponge as best I could and, put all my eggs in one basket, kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, and really went after the wave pool space. And I would say that was really my leap of faith, was kind of going into my sophomore year of college, thinking that this is the route I wanted to go. I kind of revolved everything I was studying in school and learning, and was using that, in the modeling and kind of what we were doing from the Crest standpoint of things, and trying to make everything centered around this venture that was really just an idea, essentially.
Brett, let me ask you, do you think if you wouldn't have been laid up, you would have done it regardless, or did that just accelerate it?
I think it accelerated it. I don't think that I don't, it's tough to say now. I don't think there's a world where we wouldn't have gone after it. I think it was, like you said, an accelerator more than anything else, because it was something that we talked about for years, and we just kept seeing people try and fail, try and fail, try and fail. And, finally just like, there's gotta be a better way of doing this. And, we kind of got to the point where now we feel like if we don't get it done, which we're going to get it done, nobody will, because we know how much time and effort goes into it and kind of where we're at. So I would say it definitely accelerated it.
So you get the mailing list going. What happens next for you?
So we kind of built out like our potential membership list. It was just like basically a glorified email list, right? We did our own market research. So with that was enough comfort for my family to say, okay, we're going to invest in this project, and kind of try to push it forward. So the next thing we did was we started meeting with architects and engineers and different suppliers in the industry, try to figure out, okay, what's the conceptual design for something like this? How much space do we need? And then from there, we kind of moved into, okay, what's available property wise, on Long Island, that's in our budget that we can afford, because we're not billionaires, and, we can't afford, a prime piece of property in the middle of Manhattan, but, it had to be something that would still be viable for the project. So that was kind of the next step from there. And then once we found the piece of property that fit in our budget that we went into contract on, we kind of shifted focus to then doing all the engineering drawings, architectural drawings and plans, which was a headache to say the least. It's not easy to build something, especially something that's never been done before on Long Island in New York. It's probably one of the hardest places to do it, actually. So there was a lot of learning and kind of gray hair earned over the course of about 5 years while we went through the design and the approval process over and over and over again to finally get to, a stamped, approved building permit, essentially.
Brett, what prompted you not to give up? You said 5 years, and that seems like a long time to reach any kind of goal, especially one that hadn't been done in that area before.
Yeah. So I think just having that background of being an athlete, and kind of the way I was raised was like, you don't quit, like, especially once you started something. Like, I was never even, I was not a baseball player. I was a lacrosse player, but when I grew up, I played every sport. My parents exposed me to everything so that I could make my own decisions. And there came a time where I didn't want to play baseball anymore, and it was too late because I'd already been signed up for the season. And my parents said, you're committed to it, you need to finish it out. And then when you're done, you can quit. So I learned that really early on. And that's something that's always stuck with me. And that's something that I bring to me every single day, because being an entrepreneur is not easy, especially when you're doing something at the scale that I'm trying to do it, where it is completely from scratch. You're relying on a lot of outside help. Like, I'm not an engineer. I'm a business guy, and there's so much engineering that goes into this. So I rely on a lot of outside people for help here. So I think just having that mentality of just, not being one to quit very early or often is something that's helped, but also just the support network that's around me. I kind of pride myself on my style of leadership being that I put the right people, or I try to put the right people around me that can support me. So obviously my parents and my father being the co-founder of this is a big piece of that, because it was really just us for a really, the first 3 or 4 years essentially. And, his commitment to it is probably what kind of kept me going. There's definitely days where I want to just throw it all in the garbage and walk away from it. I still have those days. I'm sure I still will as this thing gets opened up and we start to expand. But I think just kind of seeing that he was always committed to it and there to kind of pick me up and guide me was really, really powerful and strong, and kind of kept me on track. And then as we've grown from a team internally, putting the right people around me that have that same effect. And, maybe it's not in the same capacity, and it's more kind of channeled in whatever their background is, whether it be marketing or sales or engineering, things like that. But I think that's really been, kind of another key aspect for me.
Brett, I love that you mentioned that. I think sports, those who haven't played sports, I kind of feel sorry for you, because I think it teaches you so much about life, whether it's teamwork or if it's an individual sport. But I think it's not giving up, or when it's time to maybe redirect, you're pivoting. You're not quitting, you're not giving up. You're just trying to
Right.
find what you found out what didn't work. And so now you're finding what does work. And I just think so. I've been playing rugby the last 15 years, and it's one of those things that, man, that teamwork that just teaches you so much about, I think, life as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I recently took to LinkedIn to kind of start to tell my story as part of both, the podcast outreach, and just, for people to familiarize themselves with who I am, because I'm not one of these previously Fortune 500 CEOs that everybody knows, right? I'm asking people to kind of take a leap of faith with me, whether it's as an investor or as a member of Crest. So I felt like it was important to kind of get out there and explain who I am. And a lot of my posts are centered on my athletic background, because at the end of the day, that's, you fall back on your training, right? And that's my training essentially. Although it might not have been to build Crest surf parks around the country, all the different aspects that come with being part of a team, like you said, whether it's being a captain or being a leader, or even just being a first year guy on a team. There's so much that comes along with sports that can be applied to business, and even just the world in general, that I am super thankful for. And like you said, I think people who didn't play sports definitely are, I don't know if they're at a disadvantage, but they're definitely missing out on something. So.
Brett, I love that. And you mentioned putting that team around you too, because I think you realize as an entrepreneur, you cannot do everything. Sometimes you feel like you should or you could, but in reality, you need a team. And so putting those people in place, of course, sometimes they find you or they're already with you, like your dad you mentioned, but also finding those people that can hone in on those skills you maybe not have, or the interest, or your ideas are better focused elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's a really important piece to this, is the team behind it. And especially being a young entrepreneur, that's one of the first questions that people will ask. Like, okay, what have you done before? Well, okay, I haven't really done that much, but I can point to this list of people that have accomplished a whole lot more to me, and collectively we are, the best people we feel like to, see this through to fruition, and deliver the experience that we're telling you we're going to. So yeah, that's been really important for me. And for us, a lot of our team members are either family or like family at this point too, which has been a kind of a key aspect too. We like to deal with people that we know and we trust, because there are a lot of shady people out there. So the fact that I have a really good relationship with, whether it's our concrete contractor or our salesperson and everybody in between, and kind of outside of that, I think is really important too.
So, Brett, title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. What is your version of Into the Unknown? What are you stepping into right now with Crest?
Yeah, so I think Crest as a whole is my into the unknown, right? So it was a passion driven project of an idea of a little kid who liked to surf, essentially, and his father who likes to surf, and trying to start what is essentially a $50 million project from scratch. And that's really my into the unknown. Like I said before, I am lucky enough to have a family that's been successful and started their own business that I always kind of viewed as somewhere I could go after. But you know, Crest is really an unknown for all of us. We've invested probably almost 10 years and millions of dollars at this point into this venture that we're confident that it's going to get done, but until there's money in the bank and things built and running the way that we think it's going to, it really is an unknown. You can plan for so much, but things happen, right? Along the way. So I think that's really, my big unknown, or my big into the unknown, is Crest as a whole. Although I'm confident that it's going to be successful, and we're going to open up a whole bunch of these. Like I said, it's really unknown until we get to that point. So,
Brett, if people want to learn more about Crest or learn more about you, where can they find you on social media, online? Where are you at?
sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Brett Portera. I believe there's an MBA at the end of that. And my title there, I should come up. It'll say CEO and co-founder of Crest Surf Clubs. All the Crest stuff can get found either at our website, which is crestsurfclubs.com, or all our social media, the same thing: Crest Surf Clubs, Crest Surf Club New York, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We're on all of them. So yeah, and if you want to reach out to me directly, you can get me at brett@crestsurfclubs.com.
Brett, I just want to again thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I really appreciate it, man. I wish you success on your journey.
Thanks, Jeremy, and hopefully I can come back and give you an update at some point once things are up and rolling, and we can continue to network. And if there's anybody in your network that you feel like could benefit from connecting with me, or vice versa, happy to have a chat with them as well.
Can't wait to see the update, Brett. Take it easy, man.
Thank you.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.